So it's all fab.
Buenas tardes, buenos días, buenas madrugadas, good evening and night in Australia, where one of colleagues is there waiting for his participation. Mil gracias por su asistencia a este workshop, el cuarto workshop de PROCAD Amazonía, el primero que estamos haciendo fuera de Brasil y de Belén do Pará, y el primero después de la pandemia. Estamos muy contentos de poder reunir aquí grandes colegas, importantes académicos y sobre todo excelentes amigos. Primero voy a pedirles a los profesores que están en línea, si por favor se pueden identificar porque yo no los puedo ver. Entonces, no sé si... Fernando creo que estaba en línea.
But also not sure what they are watching. They are watching us on the presentation.
That's a good question, but I believe that we have to share this. I don't know. Hola, sigue, por favor. Acaba de llegar las visitantes, las miembros de mesa más importantes. La profesora Mercedes Caridad. Profesora, por favor, el público la espera.
Hola, ¿qué tal?
La profesora Sara.
Sí. ¿Y todos han venido de Brasil?
No. Inglaterra, España. Mercedes, por favor, acompáñanos.
Sí, yo os acompaño. No me quedo la cena.
No, tranquila.
Porque tengo un lío de vida yo. ¿Qué tal? Este chico es inglés.
Él es
No,
italiano.
Ah,
È
bueno.
un chico italiano, però sì,
Mejor.
trabajo in Inghilterra.
Con los italianos nos entendemos.
Pero creo que te vas a tener que juntar un poco más porque ahí no está saliendo.
Voy a me junto, ya me junto.
Ven. No seas...
No, si yo... Aquí no se me ve.
Ya.
Vieni che sono trovati sempre con me.
Ay.
Ta. Muy
Ahí
bien.
estoy.
Bueno,
¿Qué os contáis?
la profesora Mercedes Caridad...
Ya empezamos.
Ya estamos en el aire. Cualquier cosa que digas será registrada y utilizada en tu
Pensé
contra.
que no estábamos en el aire.
La profesora Mercedes Caridad Sebastián, como representante de la Universidad Carlos III y cabeza del Departamento de Biblioteconomía y Documentación. Primero que todo, mil gracias, Mercedes, porque pues esto sin ti hubiera sido imposible. Mercedes hizo lo asible e inasible para ayudarnos en esto. Aquí está nuestra colega, el profesor Máximo Ragneda, de la Universidad de Northumbria, que va a ser la primera persona en iniciar su ponencia. Y online estoy intentando descubrir qué personas hay, pero no sé. ¿Tú consigues ver quién está online? Sé que está Khalil. I know that you are online, but I don't know if you're sleeping yet.
Yeah, there are 10 people online.
¿Quién está?
Oi, Christian, tô por aqui.
Not yet, Christian.
Les voy a pedir un favor para vocês, si pudiesen se identificar nome completo e institución, por favor.
Bom dia, João Arlindo, UFPA.
Orlindo, ele é o diretor da pós-graduação em Ciência e Informação da Universidade Federal do Pará. Ele também é recentemente ingressado e contratado da universidade, é graduado em biblioteconomia e recentemente graduado como pai de uma preciosíssima menina.
Sim.
Então, ele de poucas palavras porque está ainda com sono porque a bebê não deixa dormir ele. Orlindo, obrigado por tua presença aqui. ¿Quién sigue? Khalid, can you hear me? Khalid, don't be shy.
Yes, Christian.
Hello.
Khalid,
I'm talking.
Ay,
I'm talking, Christian.
Khalid is from the
Christian, can you
Monash University in Australia. What's your department, your area?
Es que tiene que llegar a Australia esto.
Khalid.
Esto tarda un poco.
Well, Khalid is also working in the area of community informatics, and he will be joining us in about 1 hour into a debate in respect to all of has to do with information technology and sustainability in the Amazon. Many thanks, Khalid. We know it's extremely dark and you should be sleeping, but many thanks for you being
¿Qué hora
present.
es allí?
Yo que es la 1 de la mañana, es una
Sí.
cosa así hoy espantosa, pero
Bueno.
él es un hombre valiente. ¿Alguien más está en línea? Nadia,
Good morning. Yes, this is Nadia from Mexico.
can you present yourself? If you can in Spanish, it could be nice.
Mi nombre es Nadia Beatriz Olivares Lozano. Los acompaño desde la ciudad de Monterrey, Nuevo León, al norte de México. Y represento a la Universidad Autónoma de Zacatecas, donde actualmente estoy estudiando un doctorado. Buenos días, tardes a todos.
Y Nadia tiene un gatito atrás. Nadia está trabajando un proyecto de doctorado que incluye el tema de soberanía digital, ¿verdad?
Anda.
Correcto, soberanía digital para el desarrollo de México. Es el título de mi trabajo.
Y ella nos estará acompañando en la última parte del debate que vamos a llevar después de ver las presentaciones. ¿Hay alguien más que esté presente? Bueno, no hay nadie más. Entonces, no sé, Mercedes, si quieres decir unas palabras y dar la bendición antes de iniciar.
Bueno, buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la Universidad Carlos III. Creo que este funciona, ¿no?
Sí.
Bienvenidos a la Universidad Carlos III, donde tenemos el gusto y el honor de tener a Cristian Berrio, que ha llegado para revolucionarnos la vida. Vivíamos más tranquilos, o parecía que vivíamos más tranquilos, pero desde que él llegó ya no estamos tan tranquilos, pero no nos importa porque nos gusta esa marcha que nos da. Y él está lleno de ideas siempre. Y a veces yo que tengo que llevar el departamento hasta el 8 de junio, pues yo estoy metida en tal igual y él me viene con una idea, yo le digo siempre que sí, porque como lo hace él todo, no tenemos nosotros nada más que hacer porque él lo hace todo. Él busca el comité científico, él no sé qué, tal, todo lo arregla. Bueno, es un profesor que está con nosotros 2 años, ha sido muy bueno para la titulación y nos ha permitido entrar en este proyecto, que es muy interesante para nosotros, para la Universidad Carlos III. Tenemos unas sólidas relaciones con América Latina y con las high schools en Europa y en América, pero creo que este es una línea de investigación muy interesante y estamos muy contentos de participar en esto, ¿no? Y poco más puedo decir, que esta es su casa mientras dure el congreso, la reunión, y también luego, si tienen cualquier cosa, aquí estaremos y bienvenidos. Y vamos a ver qué sale, porque este hombre ahora estamos metidos tanta gente que yo creo que algo bueno va a salir. Y entonces, qué bien, que estamos muy contentos de tener aquí a Cristian.
Y gracias, Mercedes. También solo elogios para Mercedes, que ha sido súper colaboradora. Y tenemos aquí presentes, pues la cámara no nos registra, a la profesora Fátima, que también ha sido un pilar de todo lo que se ha hecho. La profesora Sara, otro pilar. Como es el grupo de investigación Acrópolis, que se ve dentro ahí, y tienen varios pilares, pues ahí están 3 pilares del grupo.
Y también está
Própolis.
Fátima.
O sea, Fátima. El profesor José, que es un representante de la Universidad Federal de Pará también en el área de ingeniería sanitaria. La profesora Marice Teles Condurú, que es parte de la organización del PROCAD Amazônia y la sufrida coordinadora de proyecto. Esther Ferreira da Silva, doctoranda en la parte de documentación y bibliotecas en el entorno digital del proyecto Tatuoca. La profesora Patricia Prado, que es el crédito brasileño, ahora trabajando en la Universidad de Northumbria. Y Antonio, ¿verdad? ¿No? Antonio, que él es un experiente archivista. ¿Tu archivo cuál era?
Yo estoy retirado, estoy jubilado.
No, pero ¿cuál era?
Yo era subdirector de archivos de la Comunidad de Madrid.
Anda,
Subdirector.
es verdad. Yo decía, si me suena cara.
Entonces tenemos aquí gente de peso. Con esa experiencia vamos a tener un debate muy interesante sobre derechos humanos, archivos y temas de sustentabilidad. Bueno, sin más, entonces dejo al profesor Máximo Ragneda. Él se presentará.
Es hora, ¿no? Ya tiene que hablar él.
¿Ya?
Ya.
Ya es hora. Y nos vamos nosotros. Y volvemos.
The presentation there
And the presentation, your presentation.
is there, yes.
Ahí está.
But they see the presentation, they see us.
¿Se está viendo? Sí. They are saying
Okay.
that. So
Okay.
I will begin to say, stop.
Yes,
Hannes.
whenever you think that I need to
Should I
start.
do this?
Oh, yes, don't worry. Okay.
Just feel comfortable.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk in English. So sorry for this. Probably will be the only one talking English, but I'll try to talk slow. And we agreed with Christian that the idea is to discuss, to try to frame from a theoretical point of view what we mean by digital sustainability. Usually during my presentation, I present some empirical work. We work a lot in North America with colleagues from all over the world on some specific project related to digital divide, digital inequality, digital sustainability. Today, some things that I want to try is to discuss. It is a part of my new forthcoming book that I'm writing with my colleague. That is on digital environmental poverty. So I'll try to explain why it's important to analyze digital sustainability in the world. So let me start by saying it's a point on which I wanna focus, some things that we should all keep in mind when we are talking about digital sustainability. And that's the fact that the access and the use of information or communication technology should be perceived as a new civil right. It's a strong point, but also some things that the UN mentioned more than 20 years ago. The idea that not only assessing, but also having the skills, literacy, capacity to use the ICTs should be perceived as a new civil right. It's an essential necessity to be considered a full citizen. We have seen it as a part of my empirical research that we have done in the UK, not only in the UK, I've done also in Russia, in Italy, in the Emirates. So we have seen that unequal access to unequal use and access to internet can create new forms of social segregation. And what is interesting, that's what we have observed in all different research, empirical research we did, is that those who are more affected by digital exclusion, digital inequality, are those who are already socially excluded. So in other terms, social and digital exclusion are intertwined. So it's like what the Bible says about the San Matthew effect. The poor will become poorer, the rich will become richer. So that's some things that I will touch on later, talking about digital sustainability. So in a digital society, the society in which we are living now, if we are excluded from the digital world, means that we are losing the capacity to improve our quality of life. It's what Max Weber and all the sociologists, he said about the life chances. So internet could improve the life chances, but if we miss these opportunities, we are farther beyond in it. So we all know that the advent of information and communication technologies have granted many privilege to the users, to us, that we sit on the right side of the digital divide. But at the same time, and I always focus this on my research, also giving the rise to complex form of exclusion. And this exclusion I was trying to mention earlier tended to affect those who are already marginalized in society. So there are some obstacles that prevent specific social groups from accessing and properly using technology. In all our research, we found out that those who have a lower level of education, for instance, access less the internet. Gender also influences the access and use of the internet, even though in the UK not so much. And of course, the age influence, the level of education, as I mentioned, and of course, the economical capitals influence. So this limited access and use of ICTs want to be defined digital poverty. However, and then I'll try to connect this point with the digital sustainability. When we think about digital poverty, when we use this metaphor, digital poverty, we tend to think as you can see in the pictures, we tend to think like a dichotomic groups, black and white, like Leibniz 1-0, to use the informatics. We tend to think that on one side they are the digital rich, on the other side the digital poor. Well, the picture is much more complicated than this. So we can observe different degree of digital richness or digital poorness. So we can observe different degree of digital inclusion, of use of ICTs. What I'm trying to say is that it's a really complex phenomenon that cannot be analyzed only from one point of view, the access. Because you can access the internet and be digital poor. That's the research, the empirical research that we did in the UK last year. So we cannot reduce the problem of digital poverty to a technological problem or to an economical problem. It's much more than this. So what we did in our research was to show that the access use of ICTs are shaped by social structures. And my background is sociology, so the social structure is so vital. So it's shaped by the social structure of which we are part of. So the social structure influences how we assess and how we use information and communication technology. So in other terms, digital poverty is not necessarily exclusively affected by economic poverty. It's not only related to the poverty. However, it can become a trigger for economic and additional disadvantage. That's what we observe in the UK. So we explore the relationship between existing backgrounds in multiple forms, cultural, social, economic, etc., and digital poverty. The idea with our empirical research was to identify the factors that increase the risk of becoming digital poor. But why I'm saying this long premise before talking about the digital sustainability? Well, because digital innovation, and we are in the middle of digital innovation, so digital innovation might enhance, improve the quality of life at individual and social levels, but also, that's what we study, also might add the risk of increasing, exacerbating already existing inequalities. So digital technology, and I'm a big fan of digital technology, of course, we all use digital technology, might help to transform the world in a more equally sustainable environment. I'm sure of this. But only if we lead the transformation and not if we are led by technology. So in other terms, we have to lead the digital transformation. And then now moving to talk about the digital sustainability. So digital sustainability is not, that's how we saw it. It's an old article that we wrote a couple of years ago, in which it's not the approach taken by some business company to achieve better sustainability through wiser use of digital technology or to run an environmental sustainable company. We all know these big companies. Since the 70s, they try to be more digital sustainable. What we mean by digital sustainability, at least theoretically talking, what we meant, is that we are talking about an holistic normative approach that should be adopted by private and public actors in using digital technology to protect the environment, but also to empower citizens and future generations. And I'll be back on these 2 points, the future generation. So in other terms, and following what I said earlier, digital sustainability is the attempt to lead the technological revolution in line with the UN criteria, instead of being driven by the technology. So it's the attempt to lead, to use digital technology in order to empower citizens, empower the society, but at the same time to protect the environment and, above all, the future generation. So sustainable digital development, SDD, indicate the instrumental values of creating and adopting technology in the pursuit of sustainability. That's what we have been trying to push in our theoretical framework. So like the sustainable development, economic, social, environment, these three aspects, if you read the sustainable development goals, these three aspects are always there. So the economic, social, environmental goals needs to be considered simultaneously. However, what we are trying to say is that we need to add individuals to this framework. It's not only the economic, not only the social, not only the environmental goals, but also the individual, because the efficient use of technologies for the creation of economic, social, and environmental values depends on the level of digital literacy. That's why I started discussing about digital poverty. That's why I started discussing about digital skills, because digital literacy is a vital component, sometimes underestimated, but it's a vital component of the sustainable development goals. And we should keep this in mind. So it's not only there are other aspects. So digital sustainability aims at the realization of three universal values that are the same for the sustainable goal. So it's the equality, harmony, and self-determination. It's exactly as for the sustainable. So to be sustainable, the use of digital technology should be led by the value of equality. So that means the respect for equal right for all, without distinction for race, sex, language, or religion. Particularly important, that's why I was mentioning this earlier, particularly important is the consideration now of the right of future generation. So the use of technology today should not go to the detriment of a future generation. So we should keep in mind both at the societal level and individual level. So at the individual level, we need to keep in mind that our use of technology should not compromise the future of other generations. Digital technology also, to go back to the second point, harmony. Digital technology might help in tackling both the ecological and the social crisis through a universal collaboration according to the harmony values. And there is a long tradition regarding, a long literature regarding the harmony value of sustainable goals. And finally, the self-determination. So it applies to individual and social formation and refers to the capability of controlling your destiny. So the self-determination. So technology can support this purpose, but also take over and partly dispossess individual and social formation from their option. So these three values, as I was mentioning, so equality, harmony, self-determination, are at the base of the digital sustainability, exactly as for the sustainability in general. So what I'm trying to argue with this theoretical presentation is that the development of technology is a tool for creating and promoting a sustainable world. And this is in line with the UN's 2030 sustainable goals. So sustainable digital development, which is a cluster of different paths towards sustainability, should consider the link, I was trying to say earlier, should always consider the links between the economic, the social, and the environment. That's how we define it, the digital environmental poverty. I will say some things more later. Individual should be at the center. And I'm saying this because at the end, we will show some policy from the UK in which individuals are not at the center of this process. So individuals should be at the center of the digital sustainable agenda. So the interplay between the economic, social, and environmental individual, they mutually influence each other. So when we are talking about the digital sustainability, we need to keep in mind how these four elements, the environment, the social, the individuals, and the economy, tend to influence each other. They are all interrelated. They are all intertwined. We need to keep them in mind when we are analyzing. So in other terms, that's why I started discussing about digital poverty. That is what I'm really passionate of and what I'm researching, as I am also the ambassador for the Digital Poverty Alliance in the UK. So it is necessary to reframe the concept of digital poverty and include the environment component in it. So sometimes we underestimate, but the environmental component is a vital part in defining the digital poverty. That's some things that we needed to stress, some things that we needed to keep in mind, also in our research. So we needed to keep in mind the environmental component because of course this reflects the new dynamics, reflect the new forces that shape it. So we need to update our theoretical, but also the policy, kits to tackle poverty and promote digital sustainability. And as I mentioned earlier, when we are talking about digital sustainability, we are talking about the use of digital technology to help the environmental, but also the social, the economic sustainability that support a sustainable future for all. So this long premise talking about digital poverty is because we are now, that's also the title and the core of our new book, we are now thinking about the environmental digital poverty. So we are thinking about the environmental poverty as a core component of the digital poverty, as a core component of the new poverty. So when we are talking about poverty in the digital age, we need to keep in mind the four aspects: the social, the digital, and the environmental, and the cultural poverty. They are all interrelated. So what is the role of education in this? Well, digital technology can be applied, and that's when I say that I'm really passionate in the use of technology, because we can use technology to improve, to enhance the quality of life for the future generation and for the environment. So digital technology can be applied to alleviate pressure on the natural environment. Think about pollution control, sustainable production, urban sustainability, also through information and communication technology that can increase public awareness and efficiency of policies. I mean, we did several research on the techno-environmental habitus. That mainly means we try to investigate with some matrix, with some index, with some empirical research, the level of awareness about the environment that we have in the UK. So digital technology facilitates such transformation by, for example, educating citizens about more sustainable behaviors. And we have observed this in the UK after the pandemic. Pandemic was, in all its bad, was a way also to wake up, to be more, to invite people to be more aware how to use technology to reduce the pollution, how to use technology to protect the environment, how to use the technology to reduce the pressure on the environment, because we are stressing the environment. We are stressing the environment. So at the same time, because there is also the other part of the coin, digital sustainability is also influenced by behavior and expectation, as well as digital competition and data availability. So I'll give you a couple of examples to see also the negative part of the digital technology. So the increased use of ICTs, as well as an increased digitalized economy, has increased also electricity consumption. And with also the crisis, economic crisis, and the energetic crisis, with the war going on, this is a further stress on the environment. So the use of application for sustainable goals, such as energy saving, mostly characterize the Western European countries, which are less affected by the negative consequences of both digital and environmental poverty. That is one of the paradoxes, because some of the countries that use less technology, that tend to stress less the environment, are those who are more affected by the climate change. Think about some country in the Asian part. Think about Bangladesh or something like Nepal, etc. They are truly affected by the climate change, but they use less technology than the others. And there is now recently, there is also the problems with artificial intelligence, that we are using far too much energy. Or think about blockchain. I'm really passionate about blockchain. I have a lot of cryptocurrency in my crypto wallet. But I know that, for instance, Bitcoin, they use a lot energy. So to give an example, the artificial intelligence systems are particularly energy intensive, and training a single AI system, artificial intelligence system, can result in carbon emissions that are 5 times the lifetime emission of an average car. If you think now we have around 200 new IT tools every week, you can imagine how much we are stressing the environment with artificial intelligence. So I'm going towards the end and mentioning some of the policy here in the UK, in the UK. So specifically the Greening Government Committee. So include a specific emphasis on ICTs, so in information communication technologies and digital service strategy. So the ICT and Digital Civility Strategy 2020 to 2025, that's the title of this government committee, is based on some driving principles that are related to minimizing waste, using resources for more sustainable and efficiently, ensuring ICT sustainability in social, economic, and critical terms, but also mitigating and adapting to climate change. So there is a lot of pressure also on the government, even if some things has changed negatively in the last year because of the war, to reduce the digital footprint, to reduce the amount of pressure that we are putting on the environment. So the new framework aims to reduce energy consumption, the carbon footprints of government ICTs, to promote the use of renewable energy and improve the sustainable design of ICTs, product and service, and increase resilience, responsibility. We'll know all of these aspects. So the government in the UK is trying, at least on paper, to reduce the carbon footprints. Because we have only one planet. If we don't take care of this planet, we are going to create a huge problem, not only to us, but for the future generation. That's why I was mentioning is about the equity in using technology, preserving future generation. We needed to preserve the future generation, so we needed to reduce the carbon footprints, not only for government, but also for the citizens. So the aim of increasing responsibility directly refers to the concept of digital citizenship. And this all relates to the digital sustainability, as I was trying to argue. So the strategy includes self-led training program on sustainable technology. However, if you have noticed in these greening government strategies, we have seen there is this minimum business rules for achieving net zero by 2050. So that's the ambitious plan. So reduce to zero the carbon footprint by 2050. It's a real ambitious, specifically with the world. It's a real ambitious one. Implementing a circular economy and meeting transparency and accountability commitments. Some of the recent UK policies established long-term targets aimed at improving resource efficiency and moving towards circular economy. So we are all happy for all of this. And as highlighted by the OECD, reviewing just last year, 2022, achieving these ambitious goals require public and private effort. So it cannot be only public. It must be also private effort. We are all part of this. I'm going towards the conclusion. Also via domestic recycling, reusability, and recyclability of products. So we are all part of this. When earlier I said the digital sustainability is to lead the revolution and not to be led by the revolution, I meant to be more aware of the use of technology. By using technology, we are reducing the impact on the environment, but if we are aware of it. What is missing from these goals from the government, at least from our point of view, that's what we are arguing in this book, is this driver for change and use of ICT in a more sustainable way, is more direct to the government, but it looks like that there is not a direct involvement of citizens in the process, and then does not address how, that's why I'm really passionate on this topic, is not really addressing how the interplay between the environment and digital aspect when widen social inequality. There are plenty of studies that I don't want to mention here, but there is plenty of studies in which a bad use of digital technology influences the quality of life. Influence the quality of life not only for the environment, but also for the healthcare, but also for the cultural, but also for the social aspect. So a correct use of technology have a cascade effect on the life of people. So going toward there, so that's just the conclusion, and forgive me if I took so long. So thinking and planning in terms of digital sustainability, that's what I'm trying to say, what I try to say through this presentation, means wisely using digital technology to enhance the universal values of sustainability. So I want to repeat this point again. It's the wisely use of digital technology to enhance, to promote the universal values of sustainability that, as we have seen, are the quality, so respecting everyone, gender, race, but also future generation, harmony, and self-determination. Why? Because the aim should be to improve the quality of life of individuals, having a positive impact on society and the economy while respecting and protecting the environment. Thank you very much for this. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hope it didn't take too long.
Good. Someone has told me that the comments in YouTube were not activated. So what we're going to try to do is they are helping us to activate the comments. So please, if you have any comment, just wait a little until they activate it, and then you can deliver your comments. Repito en portuñol. Alguém nos avisou que os comentários de YouTube não estavam ativados, então nos estão ajudando a ativá-los. Se vocês podem esperar um pouco, deixem seus comentários e quando cheguemos lá na parte final da sessão já de debate, vamos passar as perguntas para os professores e sobre essa base acolhemos todas as suas dúvidas. Sim? Muito obrigado pela sua paciência. So, Máximo, shall we go on?
Yeah, I mean, we can have now question or maybe another presentation with the question at the end, so we can have a round table at the end.
¿Alguien tem alguma pergunta neste momento?
Or maybe we can another presentation and then have a discussion together.
Ok.
Okay.
Então vamos a seguir com a seguinte apresentação, que é de um senhor Berrio.
Okay.
Posso te pedir um favor, Esther? Você vai contando os 30 minutos e quando chegue aos 25 começa a falar. I'm going to close your presentation. Okay? A ver, está bien. Me están diciendo que os comentários de YouTube já estão abertos.
Okay, then in the meantime.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to access the comments of YouTube? Or
Do you have the? If I have the link, I can start reading the comments. Yes.
okay. ¿Se está viendo mi presentación? Okay. So, I have taken a slightly different path to that of Máximo in regard to the situation that we have been discussing here in regard to digital technology and sustainability. And I'm going to try to tell you rapidly the story of that path. If these things help me, go on. Okay. So like 20 years ago, I began to research in regard to digital divide when the movement on community informatics was created by Michael Gerstein. We came a generation of idealists, digital idealists, that we thought that everything could be done and computers really could solve the world. So the idea was that everyone should be included. When I began with my master's degree, my project tried to measure the digital gap and try to understand what could be effective use and productivity in regard to using computers and the digital in universities in Colombia, 3 universities. These people in Colombia, the education is quite elitized. So you can assure that most of people that are in a university would have access to a computer and would have access to wideband. So the problem is not access. Although one of the results of this study, which was made with 600 persons, was that no impact was achieved. I mean, no solution to a problem. There was not an effective use of technology other than very individualistic and minor applications. On the other part, everyone was speaking about the importance of technology, but there were no policies applied by universities, in this case, or the Colombian government. This was made in Colombia. And the idea of people in regard to digital technology was that it was like a neutral, independent element from whatever humans would do. So there I began to understand what later would be named as an e-epistemology, this kind of perspective that Massimo talked about, this view through which we see technology and that affects what we think can be done with that and how we do it. Then I got into my PhD, which with that began to be more like analyzing the rhetoric of technology itself. How do we build our understanding in regard to technology, and how that is not created in the vacuum. It's created under a capitalistic system that comes from historic elements in regard to Eurocentrism. So e-policies are created more from that perspective in regard to how we can produce more in the industrial way, accumulate more in the capitalistic way. So illiteracy was not just knowing about computers, but having other capitals that also Massimo has worked with that would let you understand and access different elements to use and apply digital technology. Architectures would respond even to certain perspective of a neocolonialist way in which the world was organized. And although that, there was the possibilities of transparency and open data, but that was blocked by all of these historical elements that would mark the way in which the digital was formed. So from there, when I entered at UFPA, the Federal University, I began a research about digital microphysics following the perspective of Foucault. And the main center of that was a reformulation of what information society was, because in 2003, the information society was presented something like a miracle, although in WSIS, which was the moment when this was decided, there were only 48 delegates that decided this is the information society. And indeed, they debate why not knowledge society and why yes, information society. So that information society would get physical in a series of elements that I'm going to describe now. So these elements would guide the behavior of people entering into that space. And these structures of information would respond to the agency of certain groups and persons. They are, again, not neutral, they are not in the vacuum, and they would create asymmetries in information that would protect certain interests and would restrain other interests. And all of this would be presented as something new, natural and neutral through the way in which we learn technology, our tech socialization, which has a very important researcher in the UK, which is Dr. Livingstone. And that, in the conclusion, was why, for me, the possibility of the North making a dialogue with the South in regard to empowering people that would need, through digital technology, would need additional resources for their development, was a failure. Indeed, it was a failure into the North itself, because poor people and people that would be excluded, like immigrants, would not have the benefit of the digital, because all of this inheritance that we have that is guiding the digital application. So when COVID-19 came, it was like a laboratory where all of these things became very clear First, in regard that we live, I mean, it's very, very clear now to say it again, in a new ecosystem, which is the digital platform ecosystem. Our living, our actions, our exchanges are mediated through these huge companies like Google, like Amazon, that through digital platforms mold the way in which we pay, the way in which we work, the way in which we pay our taxes, etc. What was more interesting in this last time was that I came to see some work from Professor Piroli that would like to see human beings using technology as a part of the general biological ecosystem and not just in a narrative or discourse with all the digital problems are like apart from what is happening in the global ecosystem of the earth. And that was the notion of the informavore. Informavore, which is a being that consumes permanently information, when you mix that with technology, you begin to wonder, well, we have several limitations and capacities coming from our nature of humans, from our species, from all those thousands and millions of years of evolution. Could that not be limiting and opening opportunities in regard to what we can do with digital technology? So taking a little bit from Jean Piaget, I began to think on a digital epigenetics. That's how that nature of human being could explain to us what can we expect in regard of our information behavior in the digital, and what will always be a problem. So if we as a species would have a typical behavior, a human behavior in front of the digital, then sustainability would require us to understand that, to solve the problems that in this interaction between human, technology, and nature are happening. And that includes the culture that we have built on the digital and the regimes of information that we have grown up on that. So the first part of all of this was to understand how power gets in an invisible but very effective way in all of these relations through different knowledges, through different levels, sorry. So you have a level of the genealogy, which is historically, we have certain evolutions that mark what we do today with technology. For example, we got Knoxville, Tennessee, 2000 something. There was a speech by Bill Clinton making the inauguration of the first superhighway of information, and they would clearly declare that the digital would be defined by private companies, would be the angel investors, and they would save the children from being out of access. So today, the idea that we have that private companies are the saviors of the digital space come from that story. It's nothing that is not the vacuum. It has an agenda. The discursive part of the system that has built through marketing, through like 7 decades of talking about that computers will solve your life. You need more power of computing. Internet is the perfect thing to solve everything. More or less, the idea always is, whatever problem you have, you need more technology. You need more power. You need to upgrade what you have. You don't need to recycle what you have. Another is the discourse of vigilance. We have become accustomed to be vigilated 24 hours, 7 days of the week. We are accustomed to tap in the button that says, I accept that contract, with that little letter that says, you are going to cede to me all your information. We have these wearables that register our heart frequency, how many times I do what, and all of that is used to create profiles and maybe offer to me medicines, but also know when I am down and I am without hope, so they can offer me to vote for Mr. I don't know who or other. The other is the level of the discourse over the body. All of this, when you, for example, cross a red light today, you have a camera, the camera registers by artificial intelligence the plate of your car, and you have an automatic problem, a fee. A fee is that? Yeah. Or fine, yeah, a fine. But for example, if you are in South Korea and you're suspect of being infected of COVID, your face recognition would lead them to the place where you are staying, and they could get there and grab you. And that's nice if we are fighting against COVID-19. But if you are in some other place where there's a leader that used that to get rid of the opposition, then you have a problem. But this is true. There was a problem in England, in London. There were certain plazas where if people would cover their faces when crossing from the cameras, they would be stopped by the police. So this has become the day to inform us, and we have come accustomed and naturalized with that. And to end, all what has to do with the discourse of the context, which is not anymore microscopic, it's very visible. Technological dependency, domination on infrastructure, data espionage, cyber war, patents, copyright, those are very clear, big ways of domination, and we accept them. So, this implies that today, we as a species, individuals, we live in societies that are placed over this digital platform ecosystem, which is made of layers. Many of those layers avoid us to have direct contact with anything which is natural. How many of you have to touch a cow to buy milk? But you know what's a cow, because you have the representation through your cellular on the TV. But you have never touched a cow. And most of the population, if they would be left alone without the chain of supply that goes through all of this, they would die because they do not know anymore how to be sustainable in front of nature. But on the other side, anything wrong that you would do, all the kind of garbage that you produce and plastic that you throw, you also don't see, because it gets lost through all these layers of this system. So, as I told you, when COVID-19 came, all these tensions increased, and they were extremely visible for me. So what I've been identifying is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 7, 8 areas of tension that, as Massimo said, technology is increasing and increasing until a moment where we are beginning to have problems because there's no equilibrium. There's no way we can control those things being in equilibrium. For example, how much surveillance we could accept. We don't know, because we are in a panopticon. We don't know how much we're surveilled and who is surveilling us. Self-determination against domination. We really don't know if we like so much those chocolates because we like them, or because we have been bombarded with ads every minute there in the internet and in our cellular. The tension between the local and the global. We are more subject of this McDonaldization and Coca-Colaization. So local cultures are beginning to disappear and be replaced in many times by what certain centers of culture like Hollywood and Silicon Valley thinks that they are. So we are now not anymore the version of the Chinese from China, but what the United States thinks Chinese should be, or the Brazilians, because we are supposed to be something that is represented in Hollywood. homogenization against heterogeneity. Again, we have this problem of mass consumption, mass advertisement. You are guided to respond to certain models, and internet is extremely effective on that. Individualism against collectivism. We have been subject of this culture where this cult to the oneself, with the selfies, with the influencers, doing even stupid things, even dangerous things, but they want to attract attention not because of those who would be attracted, but because of themselves. Humanism against economism. We are supposed to be empathic, we're supposed to consider other people, but there's this narrative very strong: you got to be rich, you got to be successful, you got to be a shark. Otherwise, you're not going to win, you're not going to be successful. What is the meaning of being successful? Have a big car? Have a big house? Consumerism? And anthropocentrism and ecocentrism, which is something that I'm going to try to deconstruct now, because I believe is the biggest problem to discuss this when you talk about digital and sustainability, which is many of us still historically are into a narrative where humanity is something different to all the other species in the world. I mean, we are out of the reach of nature, which is not true. So building this epigenetic perspective where we understand, try to understand how we have been built, what are our constraints as human beings, as beings, and how that is affecting our capacity of, for example, collecting effective information and applying effective information, is not accepted because we still understand that that is something that is out of the scope of any natural possibility of analysis. So any way we can deny that we are symbiotic with technology. And in specific, with information technology, we have this symbiosis that implies even our way of representing what is out of us, what could be the key for our sustainability. So epigenetic implies how to understand that. How do you come to this notion of digital epigenetics? First, Serres, a French philosopher, when he says, look, we have come to a point when we are not sure up to what extent we are plastic, we are not natural, and to what extent we are natural. And you would say, but I know what I am. I know what part of me is human. Yes? Have you seen your teeth? And when they work on your teeth, that is not natural. Have you had any replacement of any part of your bones? That is not natural. Have you taken any drugs for any illnesses? That was not natural. So to be realistic, what part of you is synthetic and what part of you is natural? Wachman, when she said, the famous feminist social researcher, when she said technology is a culture, no, wait, technology is machines, technology is neutral. Say, no, even the refrigerator has a culture. Even the refrigerator has a hum. When Jacques Sejoule, another French, he says, technology is a symbolic function, and you say, this is a symbolic function. And then you understand, okay, cow. Well, what's a cow? This. When you look for something that you don't know, parangarikutirimikwaro. Do you know parangarikutirimikwaro? Well, so you are going to understand that that is what happens here. So today you understand that the culture of all humanity, or most of humanity, is what is shown in TV and in movies, because that's the reference. So really, the technology of movies is creating the world as we know it. McLuhan, the Canadian genius, he says technology is the extension of nervous system. How can it be that? We used to hear from here to, I don't know, 10 meters, 1 kilometer. Now I can hear around the world with this. I can see things that my eyes cannot register with this, with microscopes. I can see stars that are not visible to the eye with that, with astronomics. So technology, and in specific information technology, have created a new word because they're extensions of our perceptions, and in that, they build what we believe is the word. And the last one, Piroli, Italian-American, when he says human is an informer, we, every second of our lives, are eating and processing things, going and going and going. And from that activity, Piroli applies a model which is called the model of optimization. What is optimization? Any animal, when it has to feed, always gets the easiest way. Why? Because you gotta have a balance. How much I invested into this food against how much I am obtaining from this food. In information, you got the same balance. How much I invested into obtaining this information, how much I am going to gain with this information. So the least you invest, the most energy you will gain. But the problem is that you want to invest so little that the information you are obtaining is crap. It's really bad, it's bad quality. You would sacrifice good information, quality information, for easy information. And that's what is happening. Why? Because with all this inheritance that we have in our digital ecosystems of platforms, what guides that is how much people can I retain. And if I want to retain that, I need things to be easy, things to be attractive, not necessarily things to be good, things to be reliable. And that's what we try to express into this paper. Good surprise was that reviewing literature, I found this biologist that is working a lot in biology as a science of information. And just to make a summary of all of this, she says, which is something that in this, the general system theory was already known, any kind of function of life is information. We are living things because we process what we have to do, what we have to come, how we should move, and in that way we can reduce entropy, we can reduce the chaos that surrounds us, and we can anticipate things that would lead us to energy possibilities. So information into this perspective is something that has a cost, has an outcome, but if there's not an equilibrium, if you begin to pay for information that only gratifies you but is not effective, you will disappear. So, why should it be important to have a digital epigenetic perspective on all what we are talking about? Because the basic function of information is to be adaptive, and we have lost that. We don't think anymore in regard to be adaptive to the whatever could be there in the world. We are adaptive to our little world produced in the web, in the internet, and that platform, that ecosystem is biased. It follows certain agendas, it follows certain interests, but it doesn't follow necessarily our capacity to adapt to the ecosystem. So, what could be our conclusions? And with this, I'm going to end. The first is, as I told you, that we keep on treating the problem of sustainability, digital divide, access, digital literacy, multiple literacy, as that, if that would be a problem, cultural problem, could be a political problem, an economical problem, but today has become to be an existence problem. I believe, and this is the part where you say, oh, he's crazy, run away. We are going to disappear if we do not deconstruct the way in which we are looking at this. Because you have nuclear bombs, yes. You have war, yes. But who is at the back of that? Human beings that use information. Or worse, human beings, citizens, that do not use information to control those whose agency provide war, disinformation, hatred, etc., etc. So, the problem of effective communication, the quality of information, is a problem of subsistence. We are not talking here anymore about whether this is fair, that this is good, this could be lead us to a better society in regard to be more happy. No, we are talking about how we are going to survive. As we have gotten the world to, like Maximo says, to the limits. So, with these perspectives that we faced for the future, which the future is now, the pandemics, war, global warming, contamination, and the disappearance of water supply, those are complex problems that require a collective intelligence that would be able to face them. What can provide that collective intelligence? Technology, digital technology. But is just access, as Massimo says again, enough? No, it's not, because we have access. We have in this moment, for example, in our university, when we talk about computers, we have like 46%, access. When we talk about cellulars, we have 98% of access. But what is these people doing with these cellulars? And that was the thing that shocked me more during COVID, because we continued in the university, people were having 98% of access, but what people were doing with that information was absurd. And you saw that in the United States, you saw that in England. I remember that 5G towers are going to produce the virus. Hurry up, mama, we're going to die all. So digital literacy and multiple literacy are a must. But education, to have one person educated, to go against that optimization behavior, how much have you have you invested in your lives in education? Like 20, 25 years? And we have people that have not invested that and have invested in an education that is more and more less critical, less good quality. So we have a lot of people that are supposed to be literate, but in reality, they are not functional. So that collective intelligence that we require, when the challenge is how we are going to control 7 billion, 8 billion of people to solve the thing of plastics, of complex, we are not able, because they are not functional. They are connected, but they do not follow the ways of effective information. So I believe that if we would like to reduce this entropy that is happening into our ways of collectively control all our citizens and solve these very complex challenges, we will need to have a serious deconstruction of all what we are doing. And one way of doing that is to having this additional perspective of an epigenetic sustainability way of looking at the digital. Many thanks. Well, I believe that we have, we are 15 minutes earlier, so if you like mass, no, because my mouth is dry. You can come here, you can come back, because now we have our colleagues, and I'm going to call you online. Please just say, hey, I am here. So we have, well, this was supposed to be 15 minutes from now, but we are early, so we're going to take the chair. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes? No,
No.
wait. Compartir, no. Y
A la izquierda, el círculo blanco.
este,
Arriba.
arriba. Aquí. Gracias. So we're 15 or 14 minutes early, but I believe that's nice. Martin Wolski, can you raise your hand? In Illinois. Hello, Martin. How are you doing? Are you fine?
I am doing well, thank you.
Are you willing? Oh, hello. Martin is professor of University of Illinois. Its faculty department. Can you tell us that part?
The School of Information Science. I'm a teaching assistant professor there.
So he's one of our kind. We all here are communication, information. Patricia was communication and information, but she betrayed us and got to business school. So Martin is a very active part of community informatics movement, and we have marvelous conversations during the last Prato event. So we have decided to make a very important movement, which is to produce the Rotten Tomatoes or Rotten Peaches Club, something like that.
We're rotten, whatever group we are.
It's rotten anyway.
Correct.
We believe that we need more critical approach to these matters. So in that, Martin has huge experience and a lot of ideas that are going to be quite useful. Thanks, Martin, for your presence. Well, Massimo is at my side. Christian, that's me. Nadia Beatriz, have you escaped? No, you're there. Very nice. I'm going to represent you because maybe someone has missed the first part. So Nadia is a doctoral student at Universidad de Zacatecas, Mexico, ¿verdad?
Universidad Autónoma de Zacatecas, yes.
Universidad Autónoma de Zacatecas. And she is working a lot in the area of
Digital sovereignty
so
for the development.
she has touched things like data colonialism, information colonialism, things very dangerous like that. So she's going to be an excellent partner for this conversation. And to close, I'm going to represent Khalid Hossein from Monash University. Khalid, you're still there?
Yeah. I'm still awake.
Can you, Khalid is the one that we need to deliver to him, I don't know, something very special, because he's the one who's making the most sacrifices here. So Khalid, can you tell us what's your department, what's your area?
Yeah. So I'm working at the Department of Human-Centered Computing at Faculty of Information Technology at Monash. But I work on community informatics, environmental informatics, and sustainability informatics.
Excellent, excellent. So you are more in the part of
like the presentations you just had. Was, mind-boggling. Yeah.
So you are from the part of computings, but beginning to come to the. You're coming from the dark part of the force to the light part of the force through more social approach to computing?
No, I'm rather the opposite. I would say rather opposite. From light part to the dark part.
Yeah. So first, many thanks for joining us. And well, I believe that you have heard what we have presented, Massimo and me. Well, now is the time to deconstruct and try to get to something which I believe is not going to be easy in just 20, 30 minutes. But maybe if you would like, I will give you like first 5 minutes to give your impressions, to present your position in front of this problem of information technology, sustainability, and how we can apply that to sustainability of areas like the Amazon. And well, what do you think? And what do you think if anything of what we have already talked could be of use? So Martin, maybe if you can enlighten us for the first.
Yes, thank you for this, and thank you for both of your presentations. They really touched strongly with where I've been at through my career. I started at the School of Information Sciences in 1995 after 2 years of postdoctoral work in behavioral neuroscience. At the time in neuroscience, we were already beginning to figure out how do we take our data and how do we share our data with other people in creative ways. I found that so interesting and exciting that a lot of the research I had started with got put to the side to focus on using the new Mosaic web browser that was just being developed, the new Linux server that was just being developed, all of these pieces, how do we bring those together? And it was thrilling, but I found that I had to forget about my attention to community, my attention to spending time in gardens, to growing, to hiking, to camping, to spending time with family, to focus on the lab, to focus on the work there. And so I left it. It turned out that the School of Information Science was doing a research project called PrairieNet Community Network. And this was a movement that was happening. Doug Schuler, who has been parts of the community networking, community informatics movements since its very beginning, wrote at one point that every community has a system of core values that help maintain its web of unity. A community network supports this core values by supporting the information and communication needs of smaller communities within a larger community, and by facilitating the exchange of information between individuals within these small communities, and by encouraging the exchange of information among communities. For him, this was civic intelligence, but I think this fits very well, Christian, what you were bringing forward as well about collective intelligence, and that's been a term that's also been very actively used in this. And I bring it forward because that's what I found starting in '95 that we were trying to do that really, for me, was so relevant, but it also never left behind what would neuroscience be. My brother now has a implant that they have discovered. NeuroPace has been working, but for 60 years, we've been working to understand how do you handle epilepsy and someone with epilepsy. And the NeuroPace implant is allowing for a control of epileptic seizures by sensing what's happening in the brain and sensing in a focal point what's happening right there. And artificial intelligence, machine learning is being used to help facilitate a feedback to that to control that seizure. My brother almost didn't get that because he wasn't identified as a severe epileptic because extensive amounts of drugs would control the seizures sufficiently. And the federal government said, so that's not severe, even though he couldn't hold a job, even though he couldn't do work. But the problem with all of that was, without that, he couldn't work, he couldn't drive, he couldn't do work safely for his home, for his community. He got the implant through some support, but now he doesn't have internet sufficient because he's in a rural area. And that's a very common problem as well. So how do we get the information? So he's finally gotten what he needs through just this last week, a fiber optics network to the home. It's only coming 20 years after it's reached so many other places. And when you mentioned, Christian, the point about the Clinton administration, this is very relevant because at the time, download was the important thing, not upload, because we needed to consume information, not share our information with others. These all come together, and Massimo, I think this very much fits what you were bringing forward as how do we address these technical issues in effective ways, in ways that really share the information in relevant ways. There are so many possibilities for how we look at what's happening in climate, what we look at what's happening in our environmental systems, but who controls that information and what ways does that information flow? And that has been the thing I've been trying to really bring forward, that when we look at what Christian Fuchs had brought forward about how information flows happen. When we live within our US society, the information society is seen as a radical change that is objective, that it is separate, and that all of these separate aspects are just things that we have to accept and come into. And that is where the information society stays so present. And I find it increasingly difficult to work with young people because of some of these challenges. And yet what we're finding is it's exactly social media that's teaching us to turn our attention away from outdoors, turn our attention away from everything around us, and instead be present in social media. And the American Psychological Association just released last week the major concerns they have about the socio-emotional, the cognitive disparities that are starting to happen with our young people because of exactly this. All those together are actually why I stay so rooted within community informatics, because for me, it's going to the people and seeing what the people are seeing that helps us to really understand that personal connection, like it is with my brother, like it is with a personal student that I have. We had graduation yesterday, and I had 7 students that came to me and said, what you're teaching us, I haven't heard anywhere else ever. This has changed my whole thinking. How do we reach those individuals in their places based on their lived experiences, based on what their cultures value, not within what a capitalist culture values? That's why I think community informatics is so relevant, and why connecting it with the environment and environmental informatics and spaces like that are so essential. How do we bring these two together in effective ways? That's my opening argument.
Well, many thanks. A huge amount of things to look for, but I'll try to make a summary, and maybe Massimo will help me. First thing that I understand, it's you are showing the impressive level of innovation and detail of the evolution of technology. When you talk about your brother, when you talk about different things, that we have such incredible level of doing things, but those things are not applied in situations that would be changing the course of society as we know it now, because there's not the political support to that, or the economical support, because the decision agents are not tuned into changing that. And there's a lot of details in those elements, in those technologies, when you were talking about the upload and download that could permit that your brother has his information delivered or not. And that depends on the interest of certain people or certain government that would declare that's important or not important. And I assume that placing that or applying that to communities, when you apply, first, you have incredible tools that could be applied to communities to empower them, to make them more free, or to make them solve their problems. But the political and economical decision is not made, or maybe there is not interest, or maybe there is not any kind of gain. So we are struggling into a world where they have the solutions, but the decisions are not taken, because who makes the decision is not willing to make it. Is more or less I understood? You're smiling in a very malicious way, so I believe I understood.
You understood very well, and just using my brother's example is quite relevant, because the medical profession itself, some of those doctors have come to my brother when he's taking careful notes about himself and understanding how his brain's working. And they've said, turn over that. You're not a doctor. You haven't trained. You should not be writing down your own information. We'll tell you what you need to know. And it matches very much how the internet has been developed to work at a corporate level. We corporations know what you need to know, turn over your data to us, we'll make the decisions for you. And making those matches for me has been so highly relevant because I've also been the neuroscientist who's been working on understanding epilepsy to see how all these pieces, our brain connects with so many different aspects of the world around us, but the technology just becomes an extension to that. And I like how you said that, Christian, earlier. How do we bring those pieces together in relevant ways? It's by, for instance, my brother coming to realize, collecting his own data, doing the collective intelligence with the doctors, with the broader care team, but also with his family, with his extended neighbors and others around him. They make sense of the world around them that then becomes relevant to also his understanding. And even if he wasn't trained as a neuroscientist, to see what's going on, or trained as a technician to work with digital technologies. How do we bring that together? And I've seen that in community after community that I've spent my time in, whether in South Tome and Principe, Africa, or in some of our most oppressed neighborhoods within the Midwestern United States of America. It is those sorts of things that the people know. How do we connect with those people in ways that then we can also connect with technology and build bridges between?
Many things.
Yeah, I think we should go with Nadia
Yeah.
and Khalid, and then.
Yeah, no, I just was saying that I believe that this is extremely powerful what you have just said. I don't know if just
Yeah, no, I
close
totally
all
agree.
and go away, but you got
I'm totally fine if
Ver-
you just leave me behind at this
you
point.
got a very
It's
strong
okay,
point
but-
on that, and I believe we
Yeah,
or
we
Maximo will take it because well, so Nadia, now it's your turn. What would you like to put on the table?
Hello. Well, after the bombs that Martin has dropped, I kind of feel overwhelmed. But my subject goes around the same topic we've been talking about around technology. But I basically bring to the table the digital sovereignty topic, specifically in the Amazonia zone that brings us here. So this being an autonomous region in Brazil made me think about the different topics that I have addressed in my research work in the last 3 years. So basically, I started studying digital divide, which is where I came to know about Christian, and I contacted him about that topic, and he gave me a lot of literature and helped me to understand that part of the process that I went through. Then I became interested in digital exclusion, and that rapidly advanced to the topic of digital sovereignty when I came across a document published by the ISOC, the Internet Society, and they were based on a letter that Brazilian citizens wrote to Lula da Silva. And this letter, they were talking about their concern on the way that information was being managed in their country, specifically the data. So I was, at that time, I was already addressing the issue of digital data colonialism that I have translated as colonialismo informático, but that comes from Colray and Mejias that have come out with this theory about data colonialism. And it was a progress that I went through in my research work, because I realized we had this, more than the digital divide, I was realizing about the innovation divide. And innovation divide comes from the differences in technological development in the different regions. And that is not something that just came out now, right? Like Christian said before, history has a lot to do with what we are living today. So we are studying now the digital era in this historical pattern that has come from centuries, where the world has been organized in a certain way. So this digital world is not as equal as we would like it to be. And the way it's being organized is around the United States, just to be straight on this. And not because it's the United States. I mean, it could be China, as it is for another region of the world. It could be Russia, it could be Brazil in South America. I don't know. It's just to give a name to the way we are organized, but it's more of a partner. Because we have the idea, or we follow this narrative of internet as being something equally distributed, like a network where everyone has the same opportunity to access, and it's not like that. It's centralized. It's got a centralized design, and it's defined by the central powers that decided to deploy this technology in the world. So all of this at the end brings consequences to individuals, as we have discussed, and to countries. And for a country in particular to be able to take the best out of their digital development, they need to have a certain level of sorry, I just got my
self-determination. Self-determination could be?
Right, exactly. Thank you for that word. Yeah. So they need this certain level of self-determination, and that's where Amazonia comes in. That I believe that the Amazonia, just like any other country, just like any other community that has its own culture and traditions, they need to protect that, especially for what has been mentioned before and how we are connecting. So I totally agree with all the ideas that have been exposed in this workshop, because we need to take control of our data. We need to reverse things the way they are happening now. As they are happening now, like Martin, like Christian, like everyone, Massimo has mentioned before, technology has decided, or we've been told that technology can decide and solve our problems, when it's the other way around. Technology is an instrument, and we need to make the shift of the paradigm that technology is progress, technology will solve our issues. It's the other way around. Technology has a responsibility, a social responsibility that has to meet, and technology has to be a tool for us. So we as communities, we from Amazonia, from Latin America, from the US, from Europe, from UK, from wherever you are, you need to take appropriation of that technology, make it work for you, not the other way around. And we cannot make the same mistake we've made before and design our world and our cities around cars. We cannot do that now with artificial intelligence. We need to do it the other way around. We need to come back to the basis, to the root, and question ourselves. What is it that we want to achieve with this technology? And how can we get there? And the answer might not always be technology. Probably it might be stop using it in certain areas, in certain activities, and probably finding out innovation and finding out new ways to use technology together with other analogical alternatives. So it's not just have these lenses where everything is technology and I want everything. I was kind of glad to know that the metaverse dream of Zuckerberg is over, because it had no sense. I mean, we are walking this path of individualization, of abstraction of ourselves, where, like Martin said, we are losing contact with nature. And I'm so glad we have a neurosciences expert here, because that's at the end of the research where I got the psychological consequences of technology. And that's very dangerous, and it's farther away than just digital sovereignty, but it is connected in the way that if we don't address that, and not only the digital sovereignty of countries, communities, but humans, we need this digital sovereignty for ourselves. We need to be free to think and to have these moments with ourselves without IoT, without computers, even though we are using it right now to have a meaningful conversation. That's a good use we are using out of technology, but it doesn't happen all the time. I mean, people get hooked on TikTok videos on one after another for hours, and they waste a lot of time on that. So there are so many areas we can discuss about, but the main issue that I wanted to share with you was this change of paradigm that we need to make to talk about the responsibility of technology, responsibility not only with society, but with the environment, like we have said. So digital sovereignty is just a step that not only countries, but communities, individuals need to take to appropriate that technology and to decide what we want to solve with it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. Also, quite a punch. And we're going to get your invitation. We're going to throw away computers and wearables and get drunk.
I mean, before giving the word to Khalid, if I want to just say a couple of things regarding to what Nadia said, just to open up a bit the discussion. I think that we should not be so techno-pessimist. I mean, the use of technology is not per se something negative. I mean, that's reminding me an old slogan. We are quite old. The indie media slogan at the beginning of this millennium, they say, don't hate the media, be the media. And the same could be applied to technology. We don't need to hate technology. We need to use it more savvy, environmental savvy, of course, more environmental friendly, and also to be more aware of the negative consequences of it. But even if we stop using technology, we are going to be penalized always by technology. I mean, that's what I define the digital underclass. So the digital underclass are not only negatively affected because they use less the internet, so that's the first level of the digital divide, not only because they have less digital skills, that's what we define the second level of digital divides, not only because they don't have enough outside offline capitals to get the most out of the internet, that's what we define the third level of digital divide. But even if we don't use at all digital technology, we are going to be affected by algorithmics. That's what I define the three levels of the algorithmic device. So first of all, not everybody are aware that when we apply for a mortgage, for instance, is not a bank man that decides, it's an algorithmics. Or when we apply for insurance, or when we apply for everything. So there is an insurance that is, there's an algorithm, the profile algorithmics, that decide for us. So we can be penalized for this. Second, the second level of the algorithmic divides is regarding how we create this database. So it's the fake database. So if we, as in informatics they said, if garbage in, garbage out. So if we feed the system with biased data, what we will get is this bias technology. So in other terms, even if we don't use technology, we could be affected negatively by the technology because we could be oppressed. There are so many books regarding this algorithmic oppression. That included the one from Brazil, a colleague of mine, I'll tell you later, David Neymar. He wrote about the political oppression of this technology. And third, of course, that is the worst one, is that we are going to be penalized because these systems are so biased that tend to replicate the social inequalities, that tend to replicate the social hierarchy. So the social hierarchy, social inequality, and then I give the word to Khalid, are embedded into technology. So even if we don't use technology, there are specific certain groups in society that are more affected than others, and specifically that are based on race, income. There are millions of examples that we don't have time to make, but there are plenty of example of it. I mean, I make it just one easy one. For instance, LinkedIn a few years ago was offering the jobs for more than $1,000 a year only to men. And not because it's a racist or is, let's say, sexist, etc., but it's because it was trained in this way. Since in the past only men used to have this salary so high, automatically the system offered these jobs only to men. So that's to say that even if we don't use technology, we are going to be affected negatively. So it's the system that is created that embed social inequality, social hierarchy. So even if we are so techno-pessimist and we take time out from using the internet, we are going to be affected. So the digital underclass are those who are affected because you cannot escape the suggestion made by the algorithmics. Sorry.
No, please don't worry now, but Khalid, you need to get out from this hole. Sorry. I really am eager because you are the one which is maybe more knowledge in regards to computers. So, well, please, all is yours.
Completely not, Christian. But no, it's near to 1 o'clock at night. But I really feel that like it has been a wonderful discussion, and I don't regret that I'm still awake. And I'm great to see you after nearly 6 months, Christian. When we last met at Prato, I just talked to Martin a few days back, and our good old friend Larry has joined online. He's on YouTube. He texted me, I think half an hour back. I think he's also awake and listening to our discussion. So I think before providing some insights, I would also share my background. Although I'm currently working at Monash University in Australia, but I am from Bangladesh. So I was glad that Massimo was talking about Bangladesh very briefly. So I have come from that country, and I was born in the same decade when the country got independence. So I was born in a very young country, which was devastated by, it was a civil war, obviously. We got independence from Pakistan. And then, like, when I grew up, I saw poverty, gender inequality, things like that. Then I also saw the country progressing. Yeah, we saw different climate vulnerabilities, disasters happening around us. But at the same time, we also saw that the country was also doing well economically. We saw how ready-made garment industry was booming, and women were coming to the workforce. So things were happening. And in 2008-9, at the time, the country also adopted a vision. We called it Digital Bangladesh. So the whole country was after that, like the whole country was excited regarding Digital Bangladesh. The whole country would be digitized, and it has positive impacts, obviously, but then it also created a lot of other challenges, like what Massimo was just indicating in terms of techno pessimism, and whether that is the right approach or not. We need to look at that. But I think in that background, I also tried to place myself in terms of my education and career. That's why, Christian, when you were telling whether I am from the light to dark, I was just saying that maybe I was in the light, now I'm in the dark, because I spent most of my career in international development sector. So this is my first full-time academic job. So that's why I say maybe I'm in the dark now, because I see academia has a rather a narrow perspective in terms of tackling different development issues. Because I work for organization like Oxfam, which is focused on poverty, climate vulnerability, those kind of issues. I work for International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, which works on environmental sustainability. And from there, I moved to academia because I did my PhD on climate change adaptation. But in my professional life, I also work on digital inclusion, ICT for development. And I saw that initially we were very much, excited about all sorts of digital inclusion related intervention, ICT for de-intervention. Then when we were implementing that, we saw the challenges coming, obviously. There were positive impacts, obviously, as Christian was saying, like in terms of the agricultural interventions we are having with rural women. Yeah, obviously, like the weather information we are providing them through, digital technology, they are getting benefits out of that. The water access they are having by using digital technology. But at the same time, we saw that they became vulnerable to cybercrime, and we didn't have much preparation to tackle that, and things were so bad that some of our project participants were about to commit suicide even, and we were not ready, and gradually we saw that the whole country was not also ready. Like we talked about digital expansion, digital growth, and country was doing well, but then if you look at the current situation, government needs to tackle cybercrime by formulating different strict law, but still things are happening. If you look at the religious tension, it mostly happens in the cyberspace. So communalism, other things, hate speech. The cyberspace is the main space where things happen, and then we don't know how to tackle that. And then obviously we also see like other ugly impacts of digital technology. And then when I'm now working at the Faculty of IT, we talk so much about the negative impact of IT on the environment. So that's why whenever we talk about digital sustainability or environmental informatics, I always try to classify things as the good, the bad, and the ugly. The famous movie of Clint Eastwood. So whenever we talk about that, we need to see these three things. Yeah. So obviously there are good sides of it. We can name many, and even if we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, it has different indicators which are related to ICT, and we see direct impact of those in people's lives. And I saw that very closely when I worked with grassroots community in the field. But then the bad side of it, we know that like we design things without engaging people, without taking much preparation, without building their capacities so that they can embrace different digital technologies. And then there are ugly sides of it, so which can really harm people, which can really impact the whole society, the economy. We know the amount of economic loss happening due to cybercrime. So there are three sides of it, obviously. But the larger question is, when we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly side of digital technology, and if you look at the larger perspective, what are the reasons behind that? And if we look at the reasons behind that, we would again see it is mainly the system, the economic system we have been following. So if we maybe it would people would again say that, oh, you are again bringing those discussion around capitalism and other things. But it's the system we are having, current economic system, that's what make people to ignore the ugly and bad sides of technology, and just talk about so much focusing on good sides of it. Corporates take that up, and there's kind of a deliberate attempt sometimes to ignore the bad and ugly sides of it. Even I see that at the university, when we see there is a very narrow perspective when we talk about artificial intelligence, big data, and then we don't talk much about the environmental footprint of ICT, you know, how much impact big data centers are having in terms of the environmental destruction. So even at a university, not seeing that objective discussion. So the main point is that whenever we are talking about technology, and you have already covered that beautifully, Massimo and Christian, in your presentation, we need to have that holistic perspective, not just presenting the good sides of it always, but remaining cautious about bad and ugly sides of it, bad sides with you know, some careful measures we can tackle that ugly sides. Maybe often we just need to stop maybe using Facebook or you know, things like that. We need to take that conscious decision. So I would stop there, and yeah, over to you, Christian. And
Thanks.
Thank you, Kelly.
Just to say, to tell you that Kelly reminds me, I don't know how old are you? You seem to be younger than me, but I'm not so old also, but just same reaction when you were speaking about your country, your very young country, and all those dreams and expectations, and putting to work policies for internet inclusion and the like. I mean, it was just the same story in Colombia. And today Colombia is recognized like one of the 10 leaders in e-government. But when you go there and make research in regard to democratic participation, you understand that you cannot be a leader when you have a history of violation of human rights. Because for you to put your names and data into a system, you need to trust that. That's also quite present in the studies that they made in Middle East. People are worrying about retaliation if they participate in e-democracy. So I believe, and maybe just to close, because we need to, as Martin and Nadia, that was Nadia, that we need to get rid of all and go get drunk. So I would say that my conclusion is that we got in this huge complex scenario like tiers that still are not well connected. And I believe that this is the beginning and an invitation for you to try to keep on, to see we can create some bridges that will connect the social, the technological, the policy, country, international relations, autonomy, even the part I was talking, the historical epigenetic thing. Otherwise, we're not going. Yeah, but because what we have been is acting first on the advice of people that has compromised their decisions because they have an interest in selling computers. Yes. And the second, it comes all when Martin was talking, some kind of desperation when you see that there are so huge forces and this is systemic, and you begin to ask yourself who I am and how I'm going to help to change this. Yeah. So before I begin to cry, I'm going to pass the way.
No. Just to conclude with a provocation, I was talking about digital technology, this is sustainability to use in a sustainable way. And following what the Morgan Bank says, that we are going to lose 300 million jobs because of artificial intelligence, we can ask ourselves, probably it's an over-exaggeration, but we can ask ourselves, is this a sustainable way to use digital technology? Are we using digital technology putting the human at the centers rather than only the economy at the center? That's something that we should think about, and specifically in terms of artificial intelligence.
Well, many thanks to you all. Many thanks for you that have been resisted to time and the effort. And many thanks for you online. And we invite you tomorrow. We will have another session with a different but related topic, which is, let me see, 1 second. It's going to be democracia ambiental. Antonio, that would be in English, environmental democracy, with a very interesting discussion. Antonio is a person that has a lot of experience in archives, and he's part of ICA, the International Council of Archives, in one of these efforts to try to make it clear to ONU and to all other organisms what's the importance of memory to make rights being defended and being efficiently applied, and what that has to do with sustainability. So, well, we expect you tomorrow here, and hope you have a very nice afternoon, night. Khalid, go to sleep.
Good morning.
Bye-bye, people. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, guys.
Bye.